Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagan, and we are back here in Studio 130 for another fun-filled, action-packed episode of the Gold Standard and Iowa Conservative Podcast. Today, once again, I'm joined by John Hendrickson. John, I'm so rushed trying to get this episode done that I can't even talk straight.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to carry me today.
Okay.
All right. Well, anyway, we wanted to give folks a quick recap. So we are recording this on a Thursday, and we've had a few legislative recaps lately because I think as they move towards the end of session, that seems to be relevant. But it looks like they are going to try and get done yet this week. Now, my guess is that's probably a late Friday, Saturday, possibly even Sunday thing, although I doubt it. But most observers, I think, John, feel like this is beginning to crescendo to the end. Is that your read on it as well?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Okay. There is a point in session where, you don't know for sure. Yeah, we used to, we're gonna take a run at it, and like that usually puts you within about a 48 to 72 hour window of. We're going to get done, unless something really unprecedented happened. Once you get that final march to the end, everything just starts snowballing and it gets done. It feels like that has begun, I think, on this session. So some of these deals, when you start seeing a bill come out, like that's probably the final version that you're going to see of a bill. So anyway, I think the big one is, as of the time we're recording this, the Senate has run their version, their bill on the tax bill that long awaited, and the House is running the same version yet this afternoon, again showing you that they have reached an agreement, and then that is going to now fly through. Probably by the time most of our listeners are listening to this, it probably will have left both chambers, would be my guess, within the next day or so. Yeah. So you had a chance to review that last night real quick. What are give us the highlights of what is in this final tax bill?
So there's a few main divisions of it. The first division deals strictly with income tax, and basically what it does is it does the acceleration of the flat tax. So under this bill, we would have a flat 3.8% flat tax and starting in 2025.
And that's how much is that accelerated? So you have we were going to get to 3.9.
Yes, yeah.
In
2026.
26.
Yeah,
so we're bringing that forward 1 year.
Yes, yep.
And going down 1/10 of a point?
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
So it's a 1 year acceleration and a 1/10 of a point reduction in rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and then it stops. There's no... at this time, no plans for further rate reduction or, there's no gradual elimination either.
And just to be clear, that's what we started out with talking about here at ITR was accelerate, lower, and eliminate.
Yes, yep.
So we got a little bit on accelerate and a little bit on lower and nothing on eliminate.
No,
okay.
No.
All right.
And then the other portion, and I think it'd be safe to describe it as a cleanup bill from the property tax law they passed last year.
Yeah.
And basically what this does is, and we'll have some more detail on this in an article, but it sort of cleans up some of the those tax and budget statements that were sent out for the first time this spring.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is, and I'm still trying to understand this, so I apologize, but it's also redoing that formula in terms of the percent that cities can grow from assessments, and so they've tweaked that a bit.
Yeah. Without rehashing it, there were 3 tiers in there, 0 to 3, 3 to 6,
and
6 and higher, depending on your
over.
growth. And those, I think, have been shrunk a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
And so what the impact of that is, we'll have to analyze.
And
that.
then if there's a place that had no growth, they can bump up to the 810 levy if they haven't done that already.
Yeah.
So,
well, we'll have to spend some time with that. my first read of that is that it wasn't, certainly not as much as we would have wanted to see in a property tax cleanup bill.
Yeah.
Specifically, what I was reading was on the notifications, and I hope that this is a very quick Band-Aid and that they can work on this again in January, because I really, I think it would be a missed opportunity to go through another local budget cycle with anything that looks like what we had to deal with this last time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you're absolutely right. And what it does is it moves some the timeline around, and then also it, right now they had the example of residential commercial that's at 100,000, and that's changed a little bit. They tweaked that a bit, but and then the other thing they do is they try to clarify it by just mandating that there's a link on every notice back to the Department of Management for an explanation of how to read the notice, which I don't know. It's not the best way to go about doing this.
No, under the current system, you get this notice in the mail, which has some difficult to decipher numbers on it, and you have to go through multiple steps to try and figure out what it means to you.
Yes,
how much is my own tax bill going to go up? And I think until we are able to provide Iowans with that number, that these notices will be inadequate and will only serve to confuse.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I we'll be active. We're going to keep working on this. And look, if they can clean it up a little bit, great. But the real thing, there's some real pieces of this that need to be fixed. So anyway.
there's some good models out there of notices that other states use that we certainly can use as examples that would actually bring more clarity and simplify this.
And I think that's the key point. Whatever we do, look, we made this big shift over the last 6 years on income taxes to make the system simpler, fairer, and flatter.
Yep.
Well, I think that should be sort of the goal of what we're doing with property taxes, is make them simpler, more clear, easier to understand, and more fair. And that is admittedly much, much more difficult on property taxes than income taxes, because the system is so complicated to begin with.
Yeah.
So anyway,
right. Yep.
That's in there. Anything else that you're tracking inside that bill?
No, there's some other provisions in there, but I would say those are the three big ones.
Okay.
I mean, there's some other things in there, but
great. Well, that's good. Look, at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of dollars deployed toward reducing Iowans' overall income tax burden in this bill. It may not be as low as we would have hoped. It may not be as low as the governor proposed. It may not end up being as low as Chairman Kaufman and Dawson had proposed, but it is a reduction and it is an acceleration, and that should absolutely be seen as a step in the right direction.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. All right. Well, we will have much more to say on all of that going forward, but I just want to give folks an update of what's happening. So a few other bills that we've been tracking, universal basic income. There was a bill that the House passed, and it's been several weeks ago now, that would prohibit local governments from having universal basic income programs, which is basically cutting checks, old school welfare, wealth redistribution schemes. They finally got to that in the Senate. They had a little bit of trouble with it, but that's done now.
It is, yes.
And did you watch some of that debate?
I did. I wish I would have watched all of it, and but it was, Senator Zahn and Senator Webster had excellent comments on that bill. Yeah. I thought
I did too. And Senator Zahn, one of the criticisms from legislative Democrats was that, why are you telling people in Des Moines, someone from some corner of the state, why are you telling the folks in Des Moines what they can and can't do? Well, Senator Zahn represents Urbandale, which is a city that's participating in one of these programs, and Senator Zahn is former mayor of Urbandale. So if anybody is well positioned to speak to what works in his own local community, it would be our friend Brad Zahn, who did a great job. And I also thought that again, I do agree. I think Senator Webster did a great job. And Senator Busolo made some comments about, and he did this in committee as well, about instead of that too often we trap folks into poverty, and these programs that are perhaps even well-intentioned end up only exacerbating the problem.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, and I thought too, Senator Webster in his closing comments is, the untold trillions of dollars that we have spent in this country, in trying to fix poverty, solve poverty, mitigate poverty, and we have really almost nothing to show for it.
Yep.
So,
that was an excellent point.
Yeah, and it was a contentious debate. So, but I'm really glad to see them get that done, because also as a resident of Urbandale, and I get that the lion's share of this was done with private dollars or ARPA funds, but I don't want to see my community, which is inevitably going to use or is used ongoing resources, ongoing property tax resources. I don't want to see my property tax dollars being used for this kind of project.
Because there's no way a program like that can continue with private dollars.
No. And here's the underlying thing, whether or not you think it's good policy or not to do universal basic income, and you and I probably have one mind on that. It is a radical departure from anything we've ever done to have local governments administering social entitlement programs.
Yes, yeah.
Those have always been done at the state and federal level. And this is, again, and I want to spend some more time on this, I think, in the summer and the fall, and spend some real time thinking about it, John. But this is, I think, the way the left is going to try and get at this. When they cannot get their preferred policy outcomes done at the state level, they're going to go to the local level.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And so we're going to have to be vigilant.
Yes.
And then probably it would, now insert your plug for ITR local and getting folks involved at the local level, is that we can't be caught flat-footed.
Yeah.
Because they will get in this. And once, as we talked about before, once you start one of these pilot projects, even a pilot program is really hard to undo. So anyway.
Yep.
Couple bills that I think you've spent some time too following, John, are the regulatory reform bill, and then the governor's plan to combine and streamline the boards and commissions.
Yeah.
Where's all that at?
These are, I believe, the boards and commissions one, I believe, has just recently passed the House and went to the Senate. So I think it's currently on the Senate side, and this has been sort of narrowed down quite a bit from what their governor originally proposed. The Senate had actually originally passed the governor's bill, and then the House narrowed this down. And so basically there had been several recommendations over the summer made by the Boards and Commissions Review Committee, which took public input and testimony, and that's, I think, forgotten sometimes, where a lot of people are saying this has been rushed through, and I would disagree with that.
Yeah.
But as a result of, I think, some special interests that put pressure on, there's been a lot of boards and commissions that were exempted from this, and so now you have a much narrower list that may or may not be approved. I don't know.
So I think the will it or will it not be safe to get on an elevator?
Yeah, that's
okay. I mean, I think that's the question.
Yeah.
Where are we going to be at? Did we save?
Yes, the
elevator board.
The elevator board is now saved. That had been one that was consolidated with another board, but apparently that would have created a severe public safety emergency
by having another board over. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So it will be safe to get on an elevator.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
That's a relief.
And the same with the dietitians.
Yeah. I was worried about the dietitians that they would that. I have strong personal feelings about that. Actually, my personal feelings aren't as strong as those of my spouse, but it's another that somehow they need their own board and able to ensure the quality of their services, which in fact, everything that they do in Iowa is completely duplicative of everything that's done at the federal level. And yet we need a dedicated board and more government.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this is all about the idea that these services cannot exist, cannot be done safely, cannot be done in a quality way without government intervention and without specific government intervention that's done unique to each board and commission. It's
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
But if you make enough noise and you hire enough lobbyists, you can have your own preferred board and commission preserved. And
that's exactly right.
It's unfortunate. Yeah. So the regulatory reform bill. So that was another one that the governor spent some time on. Again, it looks like that was sort of hollowed out a little bit.
Yeah. And so there's provisions that have been removed, and so there's it kind of reminds me of the not to reference a Christmas movie too early, but
well, it is April. John.
Yeah, I can't think of that abominable snowman guy in Rudolph.
Oh, the Yeti.
The Yeti when they
I don't even know if he had a name. He was,
they pulled his teeth. Remember the dentist pulled his teeth, and I think this is the regulatory reform as they kind of pulled his teeth. Yeah. So
not nearly as frightening.
No.
Well, the piece in there that I think we at least paid the most attention to was agency deference.
Yes, yeah.
And there was a separate bill that did not it passed the House last year, so it was eligible in the Senate this year. But that did not advance. And then a different version of that was included in the regulatory reform bill. That also was pulled out.
Yes, yeah.
And you do a good job of articulating exactly what we're trying to get at with the agency deference. Remind folks what that piece of policy was aimed at doing.
And so basically what this does is it right now if courts would defer to the agency if there was a dispute over a rule, and now what this reform would do is it would prevent that. And so basically it would I would say provide one, more accountability to the bureaucracy and keeping them in check, but it actually would I would say give more due process to individuals, more than the administrative state, because why should the administrative state automatically get the preference in a ruling?
Yeah, I agree.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it isn't. You shouldn't. You should have a fair shake on that.
Yeah. The other thing I hope that still, and these, depending on outcome, these can be good or bad. I mean, they're generally good, but if is in both the boards and commissions bill and the regulatory bill, there was in a sense a review process for new regulations and new boards and commissions.
Yeah.
And then in the regulatory, the governor originally proposed that there would be basically a cost estimate done for how much a regulation would do, and that's good because regulations, people just think they're rules that are written down, but they do have a cost to them at times, and it could be quite substantial. So I'm hoping that will survive in there, where rules will have to be evaluated. Do they create an economic hardship? And that should be something that should be made aware of when considering new rules.
Yep. I think all of those are good ideas. So we'll have to wait and see what actually gets done and kind of evaluate the bill again. Okay, last bill. I didn't prep you for this one. I'm sorry. Headline from the Des Moines Register, John. Iowa lawmakers revive social studies curriculum bill with focus on Western civilization.
I was so
You ready
excited.
to talk about that one?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I was really excited because I thought the House had passed this originally.
I'm sorry. I didn't tee that up good enough. So in early days of the ITR Live podcast, we let folks know your other title that you have.
Yeah.
And you are the president and executive director of the what was the name of it?
The Center for the Preservation of Western Civilization.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Center for the Preservation of Western Civilization. So we had. So take it away now. I'm sorry, John.
It's a growing think tank.
Yes.
So,
Okay, good.
But no, this is a great reform, and it's starting to address the need to restructure and strengthen our history education in our K through 12 schools, and this is one would bring back Western civilization, and it has really been stripped out and replaced by, in a sense, world history and training people to be global citizens. And so this is a good reform, and then it makes some other reforms to history education, and it's needed. And I just want to say, and I shared with everyone yesterday, I was grading some papers from an online class that I'm teaching, and I had one student who wrote that, in a sense, Abraham Lincoln envisioned a global peaceful world after World War II. And so, I mean, it's quite alarming, the level of historical ignorance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to believe that, but that was the assignment.
Yeah. I think some of this, we've gone so far overboard on this idea of being a global citizen and one world and all that we really have forgotten what Western civilization is and why it was special and how it lies everything that all the values I think that we hold dear, and how it's the model for how things ought to work across the world.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that Democrats during this debate basically said, well, Western civilization, that's just a code word for racism, which is absolutely not true. It's just a complete distortion, complete lie.
Yep. No, Western civilization was frankly the foundation of education for most of our history. And, the idea of teaching that is racist is absurd. And there's nothing that precludes teaching the rest of history, teaching a robust social studies curriculum apart from that.
That's right. Yeah.
I think one of the criticisms of, well, you're only gonna teach, white European history. Well, no. I mean, come on. That's not what we're talking about here. But there are certain things that aren't being taught or aren't being taught adequately.
That's right.
That are central to who we are, and we need to make sure that those are preserved. And again, it's absolutely appropriate for our state legislature to weigh in on what we want taught in our state's schools.
Yeah,
there's nothing inappropriate about that at all.
No.
So,
and I want to thank Senator Zahn, because I think he was the moving force behind this, at least in the Senate side.
Well, a lot of kind words for Senator Brad Zahn in today's episode. So he's doing great work for us up there at the State House.
One thing we didn't bring up, and I just thought about this, do we think the amendments will go through?
Those appear to be, thanks for that. I mean, we talked about it before, but those continue to move along. I think the 2/3 majority, that's done. The other one is done for this year, is the flat tax that is scheduled to be run in the House Ways and Means Committee, I believe, today.
Okay.
Maybe along with the tax bill, although I'm not sure. And so then that would then be floor eligible. My understanding is that is progressing and it just hasn't moved yet. So, but we'll definitely track that. Another one of those last pieces. It gets hard to keep track of all this at the end of the session. Yeah. I mean, I know from my time on the inside, even when I was majority leader, there's so many parts that it can be a little dizzying to make sure it's not just the bills, what's in and out of each bill. There's a lot of moving parts. So we will endeavor to make some sense out of it all when we come back next week.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, great. Thanks, John. I think that was a good little quick update for folks, and hopefully by the time you listen to this, it's still relevant and not stale, but at least a foundation for what we can come back to next week and analyze once the session is in fact done. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Don't forget to give us a positive review. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube and Rumble. And don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe. And with all of that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.